Hello, Dr. Peters. Thank you so much for being a guest on Be Your Own Advocate today. Dr. Peters has been a licensed chiropractor for over 40 years and has a practice in New Jersey called Total Health and Wellness. I've worked with Dr. Peters a little bit, and he's always incorporating the principles of chiropractic biophysics in his evaluation and treatment of his patients that are suffering from conditions that typically are being brought on by chronic poor posture. And that's something that, I noticed, just in people in general, but also as people are getting older, that posture alignment has been a real factor in their health. So Dr. Peters has a software program that he uses to evaluate. He also uses spinal decompression to treat spinal nerve and disc disease. He has a master's degree in exercise physiology and healthcare administration and was awarded an administrative fellowship at the very prestigious NYU Langone Medical Center. And while there, he also became the director of the medical center's transplant program. That's a little switch, a little something different. And then he also worked as an exercise physiologist in their cardiac rehabilitation program. So a vast amount of knowledge in all areas has contributed to his knowledge and his treatment of his patients, which has been just so effective over and over and over again. So the importance of the postural alignment in the mental, emotional, and physical health of a patient is one of the things that I wanted to talk to you today. And when you had mentioned biophysics, exactly what is biophysics and how does it affect a person's personal?
Sure. So you could look at the body as kind of as a machine, and the muscles as movers, bones as levers, angles, and the body should be in certain positions, certain alignment, certain angles. And if you can go ahead and use that to evaluate a patient, you can get an idea of the different stresses on the different areas of the body. And we know that if those stressors are there for an amount of time, that there is a degeneration or there's an impact on their physical being and can lead to a lot of problems, one of which is arthritis of the spine.
Oh,
And we also know that there's a connection between the physical manifestation of stress, physical stress, with emotional stress. And
yes.
that's been well documented in research time and again. So I feel treating the patient, I'm treating them physically as well as mental health, emotionally, and well-being.
And so much of that comes off of the spine, whether it's we had spoken earlier about the need to protect the spine and the spinal fluid that is essential for protecting the nerves. And the other thing that we spoke about was a modern condition of people, when they're using their electronics, having that head bent forward motion where they can stay in that position for hours at a time and return to it again and again and again. So this is a new condition of life that seems to be affecting the physical body and the spine. What have you seen with that of all ages, I guess? But I guess the one that's most concerning is young people. Like, what is it going to be doing to their alignment?
Sure.
Yeah.
So as we age, our joints undergo wear and tear. It's kind of a natural process.
Mm-hmm.
And there's certain outcomes of that wear and tear, if it's allowed to exist over a period of time. And again, it leads to something called osteoarthritis. It could be degenerative joint disease, degenerative disc disease. And it really starts setting in maybe the fourth, fifth, sixth decade, not guaranteed on everybody. And there's different degrees of arthritis, but some evidence of arthritis. But when you start adding the stress of looking down, if you're using your mobile device, laptop, iPad, or sitting at your workstation, which is incorrectly positioned, that wear and tear accelerates. So what I was seeing maybe when somebody was in their 40s and 50s on x-rays. I
Mhm.
now am beginning to see evidence as early as the 20s.
Wow.
And who the World Health Organization labeled this problem, this acceleration, as really as an epidemic.
Wow.
And we're seeing it more and more, and the ramifications are going to be more pain, more dysfunction, so on and so forth at an earlier age.
Wow. Wow. And people are just not even thinking about it or paying attention to that thought. It's just because they don't pay attention to anything having to do with that's going to interrupt their electronic usage. I did notice I saw on the news that in New York yesterday they outlawed or they put a law against cell phones in schools.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I had not.
So that's that's something. I guess it's some kind of recognition. I don't know if it has to do with the postural alignments or just their need to pay attention more. But so when we're talking about that, I'm imagining it's this connective. What do you call it? Where the neck meets the spine? What is that? What is that called? That area? That would be where the strain is, where the compression, where the blockages would happen.
Right. So there's four areas of the spine: the neck, mid back, lower back, and then where the bottom is, the buttocks. The top part is called the cervical spine, and that's where we see a lot of the degeneration. If there's a lot of stress on the neck and if there's a lot of forward bending, you could also find problems in the upper and mid back region. And again, the problems are arthritis, and arthritis has a couple of different components when you're dealing with the spine. There's a disc that's in there, and the discs could start degenerating.
Does
There's
it degenerate by it actually breaks down?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the disc loses its blood supply at around the age of 20, and without fresh blood supply, healing is extremely difficult to do. So when you start having damage or injury to a disc or any of that type of material, cartilage, because of the lack of blood flow, it's hard for the body to repair itself. So you actually have breakdown of the disc, which could lead to leakage of whatever is in the middle of the disc, which is gel, and that gel can flow backwards and hit the spinal cord or the spinal nerves, which can create a lot of problems, as you might imagine.
Yeah. And I noticed I don't know if you want to call it a hump or a bump or usually you just see it on, very old people from the I guess the wear and tear of life. But now is that something else that is going to be showing up earlier?
Yes. So what you're describing is something called Dowager's hump.
Dowager's hump, yes.
Right.
Mhm.
And what that is if you look at somebody from the side, there is this hump that starts developing at the base of the neck, the top near the shoulders,
Yeah.
more prominent or more frequent in females than males. And it will get bigger over time. And what causes it, or at least one cause of it, is a forward position of the head. So there should be proper alignment, which means the head, and if we focus on the ear, it should line up right above the shoulder. But as you
Mhm.
lean forward, clearly that is going to be in a forward position, which increases the stress on the spine. And one of the things that can develop is this hump. It's not that the hump would cause severe problems in itself, but aesthetically,
Yeah.
which then can cross over to mental health outlook because somebody becomes aware of that, uncomfortable with that, and that leads to psychic stress, which can lead to problems also.
Yeah.
But that's reversible. And if you can do something with the patient where you're bringing the head back over the shoulders over time, that would lessen or certainly at least not progress.
Are there some exercises people can do at home, like
Yeah,
to, constantly push that back and counteract and counterbalance
sure.
those things? Yeah.
So what you basically want to do is you want to strengthen the neck muscles. There's always, regardless of why you're prescribing an exercise, there's always two components. One component is to strengthen certain muscles, and the other component is to stretch certain muscles.
Okay.
So what typically will happen with poor posture or this forward head position
Mhm.
is that you end up with a weakness in the muscles in the back, the extensors, and a
Mhm.
shortening of the muscles in the front,
Okay.
which besides will bring the head forward, it also draws the shoulders forward like that. So what you want to do is you want to stretch the front and strengthen the back. There's a good exercise called wall angels. You don't have to be at home to do this. Certainly you could take a break at work. Very simple. And what you would do is you would stand with your back against the wall, bring your head back, and then you want to bring your arms up and externally rotated. And I can certainly send over a little description
Oh, that'd be
of
great.
an exercise with some visuals. A picture's worth 1,000 words.
Absolutely.
So I
Yeah.
would definitely encourage people to do that exercise or similar exercises pretty much on a daily basis to help ward off some of the effects.
We had also talked about like that kind of forward positioning affecting the lungs
Yeah.
and the oxygen flow and the blood flow. And all of these things are definitely going to have stressors on the body that go with them. So, the communication from the brain that is traveling up and down the spine and then out from the spine to all the different organs and for the health balance of the body, this junction that is compressed is going to really affect that day after day after day.
Yep.
And people won't even, I think, sometimes realize where all the stress is coming from or how they can eliminate it by just correcting their posture. You think you do? What do you think about that?
So that's a good point. And it's interesting. People may not recognize what they're doing is causing the problem,
Mm-hmm.
but they know that there's a problem because how many times have you heard, I've heard, where people say, oh, I concentrate my stress or I collect my stress in the shoulders. And
Yeah.
what they're basically saying is that at the end of the day, they're beginning to hurt, they're sore. And
Right.
that's because of this bad posture. So they may not link the two, but they think that they're holding the stress, which is correct
Mm.
in this area right here. And as you said, as your shoulders round, what it does, it compresses the chest, or it doesn't allow the degree of expansion that one would normally have when you're trying to take a deep breath. And you
Yeah.
can try that yourself. If you round your shoulders forward and then try to take a deep breath, you could see you're somewhat limited. And then you're limited in the amount of oxygen you're drawing into the body, which has its own effect.
Yeah. And I think there's like a lot of emotions that go with that, like breathing deep and you're not, it's compressed,
Yeah.
it's just a whole compressed energy in the body as well. It's just so something that is, as you said, with some of the research that it's happening younger and younger and younger. I don't know what kind of effect that's going to have on them when they get older. What do you think?
Well,
Oh,
I know that it
you know
kind of
what else? Um, book bag backpacks that the kids wear at such on their backs at such young age that look like they weigh as much as the kids sometime. That's a whole nother thing that's going to affect posture as they get older, isn't it?
it's true. I know that with my kids. I remember one time I was watching my son when he was really little, and he had this backpack, which I swear weighed as much as.
Yeah.
And I was watching him go up the stairs of the bus, the steps of the bus. He's like falling back. I was like pushing him forward. And yeah, obviously that has an effect. And I'm surprised the schools aren't aware of that. And to whatever degree, extent that they can limit the amount of books being brought back and forth, whatever
Yeah.
else is in that backpack, yeah, that's going to have an effect. And I really didn't talk a lot about what the impact is on the emotional state of
Yeah.
the
That I'd
individual
like
with
to
a
hear
bad
what you
posture.
say. Yeah, please.
So what the studies show, and pretty clearly they show, is that it impacts somebody's confidence, self-esteem, increased fatigue when they're leaning forward or have bad posture. Even their alertness and their cognition. So there's a lot of impact that that happens from this poor posture. And as you indicated, you're right, it's happening at an earlier and earlier age. I mean, we've all we've all been at a restaurant and you can see a table full of people, they're all on their phones,
Yeah.
typically, and they're all leaning down.
Yeah.
And there are things that you can do to lessen the stress, and that is just being aware of your posture.
Mm.
And if you're sitting, you might have some pillows on your lap so you could prop your arms up and bring that screen closer to eye level, and so you can keep your head in a more neutral position.
Yeah, that's a good idea too.
And a lot of that is just awareness. There are also some devices out there that can give you biofeedback when you're losing a neutral or good posture.
Mm.
I'll name one. I have no link to the particular company that produces it. And there are other devices that are out there that if you Google and you could watch some videos on YouTube, it'll show you these devices. And one's called Upright. And basically, it's putting a little monitor on the top part of your spine below your neck, and
Hmm.
it gives you feedback on the degree of bending forward, leaning forward.
Uh-huh.
It's an app on your phone, and the phone will vibrate when you're out of that good position, and it collects data, and you can see percent-wise how
That's
many
great.
hours a day you're in good posture.
Wow. What was that called again?
This particular device that I've used is called Upright.
Upright. Yeah.
Right. But as I said, there are other devices that are out there, and that's fairly inexpensive. That runs
Yeah.
between $60 and $70.
That's great. And it lasts and you just have that and it makes the difference.
Yeah.
You know, I remember I don't know, do they still have the President's Council for Physical Fitness? I wonder if that exists still. And it used to be in school where they would really promote physical fitness. You would take your tests and it was, very big deal. They should, I'm going to look into that and see if they're even thinking about having, in school, some kind of programs where they, focus on posture alignment to help eliminate and keep kids growing straight, keep them being positive and like trying to avoid products in the future. Yeah, I think it's really something that I'm sure a lot of people are aware, people especially like you that are constantly dealing with it. But I think a lot of people in general, like you said, they think, oh, my neck hurts, I'm tired, I've been, they think of it as stress, not posture.
Right.
It's really important to do that in the
Hey,
future.
I'm sorry.
No,
You could think of this as hygiene. Students do have courses in hygiene when they're in middle school or
yeah.
high school, and it's another aspect of hygiene. It's spinal hygiene, just like you would have dental hygiene and so on
Mhm.
and so forth. It should just be part of our knowledge base, and part of what we do is to try to make sure that we're not in these poor postural positions.
Yeah, it's going to make a big difference in longevity as well as people get older because the spine, the nervous system is fed, all the signals, the whole body is working off of that, and when it's compromised, then it's going to compromise a whole host of other things. So it's really so important, and I not that I was aware of it because I would feel myself, after a long day having that kind of like compression. But now that we're talking about it, I find myself as many times a day just, pulling my shoulders back, even just for, a couple of times just to, to alter that. So it's amazing. And somebody said, like your head gets heavy, at the end of the day, and it gets harder and harder to hold it up when you're feeling the weakness in that area, right? It's
So one of
amazing.
the one of the things that I do, as you had mentioned earlier, is I do this postural analysis.
Yeah.
And for me, the most important aspect is this head position. And the average head weighs between 10 and 12 pounds. But as that
I'm
head,
sorry. That just made me laugh thinking about putting a head on the scale. I'm sorry. Okay.
I don't really know exactly, well, it's proportional. That's how they come
Yeah,
up. So when you have the head in a forward position, obviously the head doesn't change weight per se, but the effect on the muscles, it puts the muscles under more stress. So it's called the effective weight. So with your head balanced on your shoulders at 10 to 12 pound weight, weighs 10 to 12 pounds, and the muscles have to work just so hard, just so much to support a 10 to 12 pound weight. But as that head moves forward, the effective weight increases. And what I would do, or I do with my posture analysis, is I would take it at intervals, maybe a month apart, and watch to see whether or not this head is coming back because of the exercises and things that I do with the patient. And you can see it may start out with the effective weight of 30 pounds. And if everything goes the way I would want it to go, the head would weigh 28, 20, and then return to a more neutral position where the effective weight would be close to the actual weight of the head. And then I can produce a report, like a trend analysis, and you could actually see the difference and the stress decrease. So.
You have one more exercise for us that you could share?
Yeah, it's just bringing your chin. If you put your finger on your chin and imagine you pushing your neck back like that.
Feels good just doing that.
And then you do that repeatedly. You could do that, perhaps 10 times repetitions and then 10 sets of it, and do it in the morning and do it in the evening. And this will at least counterbalance some of the stress that you're putting during the day.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Peters. That was wonderful. Thank you for being a guest on Be Your Own Advocate.